Hey there. I am excited about my guest today, Candice Gonzales. We are going to be talking about just different things going on in the play therapy arena. I love checking in with other people about what they're doing. And Candice actually has a really interesting niche that she works with using play therapy and expressive arts. And one of the things that I have always admired about Candice and loved about Candice is her creativity, man. She can come up with things, and I'm like, holy cow, that was really cool. So, we are going to be talking about just different things going on in play therapy today. I am Kathy Spooner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a registered play therapist supervisor, and I have been in the mental health field for 30 years now. And I love using play therapy and expressive arts because my passion is helping children and their families overcome their mental health challenges and learn how to not just survive, but also to thrive and do well for the rest of their lives. That's my goal. So, to do that, I'm always passionate about making sure parents are involved in the play therapy process and even their whole family, if I can get them in. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I go live every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific time. I stream into LinkedIn and my private Facebook group, Play Therapy and Expressive Arts Playground. So if you're interested in that, it's for mental health professionals using play therapy and expressive arts with children, adolescents, and families. You are welcome to go over to that page, Play Therapy, Play and Expressive Arts Therapy Playground. And then I also stream live onto YouTube in my YouTube channel. So if you find the information helpful today, please like and subscribe, and please feel free to share it with your colleagues. All right, let's get started. So Candice is, let me have Candice introduce herself. I met Candice several years ago at a Santray training that I was doing in Southern Utah. And Candice is from Northern Utah, so she came down and that's how we met. And we've kind of stayed friends since, and I've provided some supervision for Candice over the years. So Candice, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you are doing.
Well, thanks, Kathy. It's nice to join you here. And I think you're doing a really great job sharing this information on all these platforms. And it's valuable information. I check in on it regularly. So thank you. And thanks for having me. I am Candice, and I have a private practice in Sandy, Utah. It's just about 20 minutes from downtown Salt Lake area. And I do take insurance as well as private pay, as private pay. I do play therapy for children like ages 4, 5, and up. I also see adolescents, teens, adults, the parents of these children. So I have a particular interest in the medically complex kiddos and their families. And I have found throughout the recent years that there's not a huge support for mental health in the valley, the Salt Lake Valley, for these kids. So I really enjoy that population. And I think through connections that I've made in the valley, I get a lot of referrals. And it's one of my favorite populations to work with. I do play therapy. I'm also a CBT therapist and DBT. I really love working with families, and that has been a journey that Kathy has seen. But I do see the value in it, and I've grown a lot in my practice, and a lot of it is thanks to Kathy. So thank you.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you have found, like maybe some of the lessons you've learned about working with parents and families? Because I know that was something that honestly, Candice, because I've been doing supervision and play therapy since 2007. So what is that, 15, 14 years? It's been a while. Um, and and so I started out in Virginia, and now I'm over here on the West Coast, and it's still the same struggle. And I find that a lot of people are not quite sure how to really get maximum impact or for their child and adolescent clients with working with parents. And so I'm curious for you, what were some of your struggles with that, and what helped you to grow in that area and feel more confident and see more positive results?
Yeah, it definitely, I think I look back on previous jobs that I've worked in, and it wasn't something that was so mandatory or so, I don't know, it wasn't modeled as being such a necessary part of the process to involve the parents. It was kind of like, well, check in with the parents, but it was kind of like a drop the kids off, meet with the kids, fix the kids, and then the parents pick them up. And it definitely, it it doesn't work. It doesn't work, I don't think. And um so things that helped me were the challenges that were coming into my practice were so overwhelming, and I had such little time to work with the kids each week. And I was used to this model of like, okay, drop and go parents, and it just wasn't working. So I think it worked for a lot of the families that I had worked with, where it was very like client or family centered, but it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me, and I don't think it worked for the client, most importantly. So I think I was able to, through conversations with you and just experience, was able to say, you know what, I need to establish a practice that I believe works best for the client, that will benefit the family the most. And I had to shift it from kind of what was most comfortable for the families, which is like drop and go, to, hey, you know what? I really need parents to participate. We're going to see more benefits in the child's life if parents can be a regular participant in these sessions, and even if we can get the family involved. So it was a rough transition, meaning I had to find my voice, and I had to
Mhm.
find what worked well for me, especially for current clients or clients who were current at the time, and saying, "Hey, I know we've been practicing this model, but I really need to shift it, and here's why. I think we'll see more benefits altogether. I don't plan on being in this kid's life forever. You're going to be in this kid's life forever." And to use your language that you have, like, pounded into my brain here, the agents for change are the parents. It is not the clinician. And that was it was a difficult transition, but I quickly grew in my confidence and was able to set it up in the very beginning when I would start with new clients and say, hey, listen, I am a clinician that requires parental and family involvement. If that doesn't work for you, that's okay. There are probably other clinicians that will not request that, and you're welcome to go somewhere else. But the families who stuck with me during that transition and the families that have come in since then, I just find it to be so much more beneficial. I think people um, are learning things a lot faster, and I'm getting clients in and out, I think, a lot quicker than I was several years ago.
Yeah, you said something I thought was really, really helpful. And oh my gosh, Candice, when you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. And now I can't remember what you said.
Well, thanks, Kathy.
I know. It was so good though. Oh dang it. It'll come back to me. The joys of live streaming at 7 a.m. my time. um, but I think, one of the things that you did say is the shift that you found in terms of the positive impact. And I think when we get parents in there, then it does tend to speed the process up. And the way that I've always looked at the therapy process is, and I say this to my clients, my job is to work myself out of a job. That is my job. So what does that mean? My job is to help you get to the point where you don't need to come anymore. And then they make this horrified look on their face, like, what? That's so weird. You want me not to come anymore? So then I yeah, and so I kind of explained, yeah, because that way you're getting what you need, you're feeling better, and you don't need to come anymore because you've successfully completed and achieved everything you want to achieve. And my job is to help you get that so that you don't need to come anymore. And then we celebrate your graduation. And then and I think that's one of the ways we avoid burnout as well. If we have it in mind, what is my role? My role is to help my clients get better so they don't need to come anymore. And so if that's my role, my other part of my role is to figure out how that's going to happen. Like, how can I help them get that? And what I found is integrating the parents in, you can get there quicker. And now parents have skills, and they can be that support person for their children. And I look at that as really changing generations. Like, if you can help that pattern to shift, that has some pretty long-term outcomes. That's how I look at it. That does it always? I don't know, but theoretically it should work. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's the skills development, but it's also the confidence building, and I think
Yes.
a lot of times when people come, they feel like powerless perhaps, and they feel like things are out of control a lot of times. And so I think a lot of what goes on is just validation, like, yeah, that is really overwhelming with the parents. And then kind of restating like the roles for parents. And I some of the stuff I was reviewing some of your recent Facebook posts, but some of like the co-regulation, and I love how you always nerd out on the neurobiology. But it's like that's one of my favorite things to do in the very beginning is hit the co-regulation right in the beginning and the developmental stages and how our expectations have to be in line with the child's age. And if they're a little bit older, but maybe they've struggled with certain things, we can't expect them to be at their chronological age. They're probably even further behind. So it's seriously so helpful in the beginning. And I love seeing parents kind of click and get things and then they just take off. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't even know that there's a ton of skills, but it's a lot of validation and just a few little directions that I point people in that make huge differences. And it's a joy. It's a joy to watch the process.
You know what? It really, really is. So, I think that's why we do what we do, because we love seeing that transformation that people go through. And that feels good to witness that and to bear witness. And part of that, like you said, is building that rapport with parents in a supportive way. I mean, I'm a parent. I did not get the easy kids. It was hard. I needed somebody to tell me I was doing a good job. So I think that's part of what we do for parents, is to remind them that they are doing things right. And it's a hard job. And hey, just, you may want to try doing it this way. That might work out better. And so having that person who's the support person to them is really, really, really important. And one of the reasons I think I remember what you said, which is, that shift in model. When we're in graduate school, most of us in graduate school, if we went the clinical track, whichever discipline, it was individual. Maybe we took a class on family therapy, but the primary focus is an individual therapy lens. And I see that in the play therapy world as well. Me too, until I kind of figured out how, because I'm a family therapist at heart. That's like, I think, even though I'm a licensed clinical social worker, I really am more of a marriage and family therapist at heart, because that's the model that I was trained in. And so for me, when I do supervision and when I do trainings, and I have the training coming up, it's an online training on June 21st, I mean 25th, it's a Saturday, parents in the play therapy process. For me, the reason that was so important to do that is to help that shift, get that shift from the individual lens to more of an attachment and family systems lens. Because, like you were saying, that's a huge shift. It is a whole new way of conceptualizing the treatment process, and the outcomes for that are much, much better. And even all of the research shows that. All of the research shows when you involve the parents as integral parts, then there are more positive outcomes. And I wanted to stop for a second. Hey, Nicole. So Nicole said, this is something I'm going to plan to integrate, and I don't bring parents in early. And you know what, Nicole, I think I know but I've talked to Candice a long time. I talked to a lot of people in supervision. I think this is what a lot of professionals do. We don't bring them in early. And so Nicole, I'm curious what population that you work with, and feel free to post where you're working from. And what have you found? What is it about this that makes you want to integrate parents more? I'd be curious about that. So feel free to post that. And I forgot to say, anybody listening, feel free to post a comment. Let's see who's here. Where are you from? What population are you working with? Go ahead and join the conversation. One of the things, Candice, that I have absolutely loved about moving towards online trainings, and actually even doing these live streams, I've met so many people from around the world doing play therapy. Like in some of my trainings, I had somebody in my last one, attachment focused family play therapy. We had somebody from Australia. It was she pulled an all-nighter, which was because
That's commitment.
I was so impressed. But I have people from Hong Kong. A lot of times they're from the UK or Europe, but really around the world. And it's really so fun to see what other people are doing around the world. So you guys feel free to post. If you're watching the replay, feel free to post and comment. Yeah.
I think it helps, Kathy, if I can just kind of
Yeah.
add my comments here. I think it really helps to check in with yourself. And this is something that you really pushed me to do, is to establish my expectations and my clinical desires here. Like, it's okay, Candice, what would help you? What would help progress this case along? Don't be afraid to ask for it, and even to demand it. So it very quickly, I think in the course of 2 weeks, I was able to sit back. I did update my intake paperwork. I did a lot of things to just say, hey, moving forward, it is no longer like, hey, if there's a crisis, parents will participate. It is mandatory, and it is just part of my spiel when I get a phone call.
That's
Hey,
awesome.
I just want to let you know that parents are required to participate at least once a month, in addition to the weekly sessions with the child. And it's just been really smooth, but establishing my expectations for my own practice has been really, really helpful and very important.
Do you notice a difference in your overwhelm?
Such a big difference. When you said that, when you were talking about burnout, it's real. It's real. And it was really overwhelming to me to get emails and phone calls, and while maintaining my caseload and living life and doing all the things. And so what has been really helpful in containing a lot of those requests to connect from parents and families is to say, hey, I received your email. We're going to talk about it at our scheduled appointment on such and such date. And that's it. I don't have to provide lengthy responses or get on the phone. It gives us an opportunity to say, hey, what do we need to cover? And there's always like parent sessions could go on for hours. Like, I don't feel like I'm running out of things to discuss because there's so much to cover. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is that I think that I've talked about this, like, where a lot of times I would be like, oh, this person has like a PhD or they have like all these advanced degrees. What do they have to learn from me? And while I can respect and value the accomplishments that a lot of these professionals have uh, made in their own lives, we truly are the specialists. We are the specialists, and kind of leaning into that and saying, even someone with a PhD, like perhaps in couples counseling or something that is very specific to therapy, but their own little niche, they may not have the expertise or the knowledge on working with children. And so I really had to kind of get over some of that insecurity, and it's all part of the process. And just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if other people struggle with that as well.
I think that's a really good point, and that's also one of the other things that I really, I think why we hit it. You like your authenticity and being real. I love that about you, because I do find that to be the case, and that imposter syndrome.
Yes,
And I
imposter
think we
syndrome.
all we've all struggled with it, continue to struggle in different ways, and at the same time, parents are looking at you as the expert because they need help. And if we can come alongside them and partner with them, then I think that is much more effective to help the child get the outcomes that they need. And I'm going to, Nicole said, in the UK, work with children and young people from the ages of 5 to 18, parent meetings, but they take midway. Yep. And you know what, Nicole, I think that's a really good idea as well. Allowing space to get to know the child. I do that as well. Here's the thing though, I start from the get-go, and I tell parents, this is how I usually start out. I'll meet with the child once a week. I meet with parents at least once a month without the child present in the beginning. We may end up meeting more. We may end up doing family sessions in the beginning. This is the way that I structure the sessions to help me get to know your child and kind of get to know you. And that those sessions with you help me to understand what's going on with your child. I get your feedback. You and I will brainstorm, come up with what needs to happen. I'll give you feedback. You let me know how that works. This is how we kind of partner together to figure out how to help your child. And it's been my experience, if you do that right from the beginning, then your relationship with parents gets established much more quickly. The other thing it does is cut down all the phone calls, texts, and emails in between the sessions. Because, some parents will, and I encourage parents to contact me, but I have a way in which I structure that so that I kind of funnel them to make sure we have those family meetings, because that's where it's going to take place. And I am not a fan of therapy by text or email. And I have always, until currently, but I've predominantly worked in private practice, so it's fee for service. So if I'm spending 5 to 10 hours a week returning phone calls and emails and texts, that's a lot of paperwork time, meaning I could be doing the paperwork that's required that none of us really like. And then I think just we avoid burnout if we manage that more effectively. So the training that I'm doing at the end of the month on June 25th. I think you took that one too, Candice.
I did. Yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
training.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a lot of what we talk about. Part of it is when you work with children, you work with their family. Whether or not the family's in the session, you're working with the family and you're definitely working with the parents. So there's a practical part of how do you manage all of that so that you don't get burned out because, typically we have pretty high caseloads and children come with parents and families. So you not only have the child, you have the whole family. And so being able to manage that, I think, just makes for a more effective therapist because you're not so burned out or overwhelmed. It's not that we don't, periodically we all get overwhelmed at times and frustrated. That's just, life. That's any job really. But if we manage that, I always tell people, especially if you're working in private practice or on an outpatient basis, and even if you're working for an agency, time management is key. If you cannot manage your time, you are going to get overwhelmed and you are getting behind in your paperwork. And to me, there is no greater hell than being behind the paperwork and having to catch up. That is absolute torture for me. It's like I hate it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So and I think for you, Candice, because you do work with that unique niche, I think you're right. I think I even found even on the East Coast when I was living in Virginia, there's not a lot about how to help people with complex medical issues. And they do. I mean, part of it, they could have medical trauma from all the invasive procedures. But then, I've worked with kids who were on the other side and on the recovery side of having cancer. And the whole family dynamic will shift when you have those medical issues going on, and especially if it's a life or death thing with their child. The family, the siblings shift, those relationship, everything shifts, and it can take a bit of time to get to homeostasis, I'll say, on the other side of it. It's never going to be the same as it was, and that's not necessarily what you're aiming for, but to find some more balance and in those relationships is really key. So
Yeah, and I even just think of the role that average parents are put into when they go through something medically complicated, having to administer medications and swap out IVs and G-tube bags and who knows what, all these things. It's a level of control and a position that untrained people are being put into to help keep their kid alive. And when children are recovering or even during the peak of their medical crises, I just think that there's such a need for support to just say, hey, yeah, this is not a typical where was this in all the parenting books that you read?
right.
Where was it? I missed that chapter as well. And there isn't really kind of a guidebook as far as I've found. I'd love to hear if anyone has found really wonderful parenting books on navigating medically complex children, but it's just nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. We don't expect perfection from our children, but we also have to understand that parents aren't perfect either. And that's one of my favorite lines to drop in front of kids. Hey, nobody expects you to be perfect, but we also can't say that moms and dads are perfect either.
Right.
And we don't expect that. So kind of just giving ourselves space to live our lives and do the best that we can do and continue growing and learning. I think that's one of my favorite things to help people click with.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I think it's really awesome that you enjoy working in that niche because I definitely think there's a need in that niche. And we don't think about those things that you just said, like all of the medical things that parents have to do to help their child be well. And that some of that can be traumatic for parents as well. You know, thinking that you're not sure when your child's going to be maybe not feeling well, what might be a common cold, and just take some over the counter medication. For another child, that could be a life and death situation. And those are kind of scary things, and helping parents navigate that, I think also kind of underscores the importance of making sure to work with parents for sure. That's
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So it was awesome. How I always love chatting with you, Candice.
It's always so fun. I think we laugh a lot when we talk, and you've been a great support and mentor. So thanks again, Kathy, for having me on, and keep up the good work.
Yes, cool. So if I don't know, Candice, if there's anybody who is watching, because I have this in my Facebook group, and I know people do watch the replays, but if there's anybody up there in your area that wants to refer a child to work with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Sure, yeah. So my business name is Agile Counseling, and probably the best way is to go to my website.
Okay.
Agile Counseling. I think I have a link that says like contact me or contact us.
Okay.
Or there's also a phone number listed, but it's AGILE counseling.com.
Okay. I'll put that in the comments below, and
Great.
then people can hop over there to your website if they have a child, if they're in your area and they have a child to refer. Because I actually, in my Facebook group, have quite a few people in Utah. And by the way, Utah is so pretty. I live in Nevada, southern Nevada. It's very brown and hot right now, very hot and very brown.
And then in contrast, it was 45 degrees here last night, and it was
Yeah,
freezing. It'll be 110 tomorrow, don't worry, but it is a beautiful state.
it is. And where you are is so beautiful up there for sure. Yep. All righty. So, if anyone is interested, I do have a training coming up. Like I mentioned before, it's called Parents in the Play Therapy Process. I will put my website up here. If you're interested in the training, it's 2.5 hours. It's online. There are CEs available. And if you don't need the CEs, then there's a version, and that's less expensive than the other one. But you can go on to the my website, rrhcounseling.com/courses. The name of the training is Parents in the Play Therapy Process. And that will be on June 25th, Saturday, June 25th in the morning. All righty. So it was great having you on, Candice.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.